Holy smokes! It's Murderbot Bourne! Hello and welcome back to the couch. We saved you a seat. My name is Luke, and today we're checking out the second book in the Murderbot Diaries series called Artificial Condition. This is the first chapter. We're going to do a review of this book chapter by chapter. If you want to follow along, there's going to be a link in the description below to Amazon. Click the link, buy the book, follow along. If you don't want to buy the book or you've already bought the book, just use the link to buy something else. It helps out the channel and we can get going. So we're going to begin. First, a lot of table setting in this chapter. A lot of table setting. So in the first book, we're left with Murderbot's, it's escaped its conditioning, right? It's off the registration, it's off the reservation, it's moved on with life and decided it needs to go find this thing, a purpose, I'll say. And so this chapter is the next step. It's gone from preservation onto another transport ring that it coincidentally calls a mall over and over again. So I'm imagining something like Deep Space Nine, right? Something with like a bunch of markets and people roaming around, going from place to place, similar to an airport. That's what I'm imagining. Murderbot doesn't really describe it super well, mainly because it doesn't care. It talks about that over and over and over again. I think that's going to be consistent here. We talked about the cons from the previous book, and one of those cons is that the author doesn't really write exactly what we're expected to see and lets us kind of fill in the gaps with saying things like wormholes and transports, and these are pretty generic terms and we don't really know what that kind of means. But I digress. I'm imagining that Murderbot's just kind of trying to get and meander its way to a transport so that it can get to the next place, which conveniently it doesn't say. We leave that out. The greatest part about this chapter is we re-engage with how thoughtful Murderbot is. Murderbot is really thoughtful. It knows how to get around systems, get through systems, and other great thing that happened is it saw itself on the news, which freaked it out. But if you're the kind of person who's ever been to New York City, I live in DC, right? In DC, I am 6'3", blonde hair, blue-eyed. I still feel noticed sometimes. But if you go to New York City, it's completely anonymous. The anonymity in New York City, to me, feels completely different if you're just walking down the street than you do in DC or Dallas, than you do in Tampa, Seattle, all places that I've been, Boston. The anonymity in New York is different. It's a different animal. You're seeing people living out their own lives, and they're so different from you that you can't possibly relate to them, and that anonymity happens. That's what's happening in this book. Murderbot's walking through the mall, walking through these verandas, going to different shops, trying to figure out what's going on. It's a very Jason Bourne situation. And it's kind of awesome that, oh my God, Jason Bourne. I love that moment in those movies. It's hilarious to me. It's hinging on kind of creepy how funny it is to me. But anyway, not creepy, just weird. I love those moments in those movies. They're great. But Murderbot is trying its best to be as anonymous as possible. It talks about being able to hack multiple systems, and it often doesn't intentionally because it doesn't want to get caught hacking. But it can, and it's trained to, or not trained to, but it has the capacity to do so, and without the governor module, it can. It talks about how it kind of just looks like an augmented human as it walks through and bumps into all these people and just I'm imagining shoulder to shoulder traffic. I'm imagining Atlanta airport. I'm imagining a bunch of just random people. Aliens? Are there aliens in this universe? Don't know yet. It also doesn't have any armor. Just wearing generic clothes. All of this is table setting. All we know is that the corporations from the news feed, because it does stop. One of the pivotal parts is it does stop and it watches the news feed and it talks about Murderbot talks about, hey, I don't watch the news. It's boring. I feel you, brother. I don't watch the news. But Murderbot talks about stopping and pulling up that news feed and standing in front of one of these like bodegas or whatever vendors, and looking like it's reading the feed and getting information about what this vendor is trying to sell or what the information is coming from this display. Really, it's reading the news. And the news is that Minsei, Pinli, Rati, all those people are back and forth talking about the liability of what happened to Deltfall, who's at fault, who's to blame, right? It sees itself on the news, which freaks it out a little bit. I think we covered that. But to be fair, it's a little bit too much of a freak out. I think no one's on it's not like it's missing, but also to be fair, it's possibly an old news feed, right? Information in space, just like people in this universe, had to travel through wormholes to go great distances. Okay, and so this could have been 20 hours ago, a week ago. This might be old news. And it mentions that later in the book that it's copped away onto another transport, and that it might take 21 cycles to get to wherever Murderbot is trying to go to. Conveniently doesn't say, like I said before. And I'm imagining 21 cycles is like 21 hours. I feel like 21 days would be a lot. Like 21 days is more refugee stuff. 21 hours is more like a long flight. The longest flight I've ever heard, but a long flight. So yeah, Murderbots, this is just table setting. Hey, we're getting going. I'm interested to see where Murderbot goes. I don't know where it's gonna go. I don't think it's gonna go back to the planet that it was on before. The ship that it's getting onto is interesting. That it's a university ship, a research vessel for a university or students who are learning. I'll be interested to see how that kind of plays out. I thought maybe, as a kind of whatever coincidence, one of the crew from the first book is gonna arrive. It's gonna be on the ship too and notice it. I thought that might happen. We don't know. We shall see. But I do think it's interesting how thoughtful Murderbot is. I use that word a lot, but it really is conditioning itself, or it's preconditioned itself to not take too many chances, to be capable of doing a few things. It talks about how much longer it would take it to hack things, and that it doesn't want to spend too much time in those feeds and in those systems, right? It talks about how it still has weapons. I didn't know Murderbot still had weapons on it, right? If it was scanned, I guess it would be considered a weapon, but it doesn't have the projectile. It doesn't have the armor, the projectile weapon. It doesn't have the armor. But does it have like the energy weapons in the hands or wrists like Mega Man? Not sure. It doesn't say. It just says that it's a weapon. It doesn't want to be scanned for weapons. And these transport vessels that carry humans would. So it has to continue to take cargo vessels, which is interesting. We'll see how that plays out. Because one thing may lead to another, right? One thing Murderbot does do is take in a situation, immediately prioritize the situation, and take action. But what if those priorities are a little askew, right? What if they're a little off? What if Murderbot doesn't make the right choice or the correct choice? See, right and correct aren't the same, right? Sometimes you can make the right choice, and sometimes you can make the correct choice, and sometimes the correct choice isn't right. That's a thing. If we get into the corporate world, that's a thing almost every day. It stinks. But, digress. Pretty good chapter, super easy to read, about 10 pages. 12 pages. I'm interested to see where we're going. What kind of planet and world are we getting to? What is Murderbot going to do without its armor? Is it going to be able to go without freaking out? Are we going to run into Dr. Minsei? Is liability for purchasing or renting, I guess, SecUnits going to be a problem? Is it going to get scanned for whatever reason? Is he going to come into a situation it's unfamiliar with? This situation is unfamiliar. It's in a human habitat. It's in a human realm where Murderbot is consistently in the tools section, the cargoes section. It's consistently treated like a tractor, right? Rather than like a human. So I'm interested to see. It's in a foreign place, but how much more foreign are we gonna get? I imagine pretty foreign. There's a lot of books. Are we gonna see Minsei soon? I like Minsei a lot. She's a dog, a weapon. Be interested to see. Be interested to see the news feed. It is interesting. I'll tell you this. I love this, the part where they talk about Murderbot talks about that solicitors are arguing on the news feed, like CNN or Fox. it's like I think that this should have happened. I think that this should have happened. Well, legally this should have happened. Well, that's SecUnit. Blah blah blah. Interesting. The universe that this takes place in seems so vast, massive, right? They have wormholes. They're traveling in between systems. There's planets that are habited. There's uninhabited planets, whatever you want to say. There's all this other stuff happening. If they needed to find Murderbot, or they were trying to find Murderbot, could they? Is there a way to find rogue SecUnits that we don't know about yet? Murderbot hasn't told us. I don't think that there is. I also find it interesting that it's still owned. It still considers itself owned. Like Minsei still owns it. Right? It's got freedom. It's a free bot. Mentions that too. It's a free bot. But it's still owned. And I wonder if there's like an identifier on Murderbot that says, that's like stamped, that's like Dr. Minsei's property. Similar to a tractor, similar to cattle. We'll see. But I think that's it for me. A lot of table setting in this chapter. Very interested to see where we go in the next chapter and if we're going to be with another crew. But yeah, I hope I didn't miss anything. And if I did miss something, please put it in the comments below. I'm sure I did. But I've been kind of rambling. Look, we put out content every single day, so stay tuned for chapter 2 tomorrow. Some other things. I'm thinking about starting an action movie series where we react to action movies once a week. So if you have any thoughts about that, me and the boys might throw in an action movie and talk about how awesome they are. But until next time, and I think I'm done. Later, taters.